Cool.
We're live.
Yeah, it will happen. Don't worry. It will happen. What were we saying? We're going? We're not live. Oh, no, we're not. Oh my gosh.
Heard that.
Thank you for telling us all what is going on.
Listen, I'm a good interviewer.
It's okay. You know what? Here we're super casual. We're super casual. We just hang out and have a good time. We've been doing this like all day. We're exhausted. We've been having a good time.
I'm on my A game here. I know what's happening. I don't know what's going on here, but
Anyway, as we were saying, I am super excited. We are back here again in the Aston Martin tent with one of my favorite people in rowing. I'm super excited, David Smith, who has been rowing for the U.S. and for like a million other teams. You row for so many teams, and it's amazing. Like your experience, like it knows no bounds. Like you, so we're gonna get to know David a little bit because he has a really interesting story and some very interesting views of the sport, and it's really interesting.
Good way to put it.
We're starting strong. Absolutely. Okay, so first and foremost, please tell me a little bit about kind of who you are, what you've been up to, and then we'll kind of dive into like how the rest of it works and kind of what you're doing here at the Charles and all that. But start off by just kind of telling us who you are and what you're all about, what you're doing.
Sure. So do I need? I'm holding it. Okay,
Yeah.
it's close enough.
So it talks in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But can we just talk to each other? I
talk
don't
to
have
each
to
other.
look at the camera.
Yeah.
All right. So my name's Dave. I mean, we know each other from probably one of these events a little while ago. I have represented Pocock Rowing Center. That's kind of where I started rowing in high school a little bit, and also at Lakeside School out in Seattle, Washington. I'm in Seattle now. I'm a coach at a Pocock Rowing Center, so it's really interesting to kind of come full circle with some of that stuff. You know, some of the kiddos on the junior team are literally wearing the same shirts that were given to me by some crusty old Pocock guy, and now we washed them. But
It's good. It's probably good.
and I've had the honor of representing the U.S. lightweight team a couple times. And I feel like every time I've just like slipped in there. Like I feel like I don't really ever quite deserve it or earn it, but that makes you a little bit hungry to do well. And I've gotten really lucky and had some really good success there too. So one of the things that we say at Pocock actually is like, if rowing's been really good to you, and rowing has been like extremely good to me, like I feel like I won the lottery like every time. You give back, you want to be good for it. So that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
Coaching primarily.
Yeah. Well, actually just stepped down from a couple coaching roles, but for the last like 2.5 years, that was what I was really focusing on. And sort of like training around that and doing it maybe not as much as I should have, but the coaching has been a real gift. It's been awesome out there. So yeah.
That's really neat to hear. And I noticed that you kind of said like you feel like you've kind of been able to slip into like the U.S. spots, and you've been able to represent the U.S., but you don't just kind of slip into representing your country. And I know for a fact that you have been one of those people that has worked so hard for so many years, and a lot of people don't really see the work that goes on behind the scenes. They see people and they're like, oh, they're really fast this year, or they did really well at this race. But they don't know that there's 10 years of work behind that, and funding and time and sacrifice and a lot of pain. And, there's a lot that goes into that. So if you can, tell us a little bit about kind of what goes into that, like day to day. Like when you're talking about just slipping into a national team, you're not just showing up at one race and racing. Like there's every day you are doing something to kind of further your goal to making that team.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I don't mean to be dismissive of any of the effort that goes into that. It's just it's not this narrative of like, oh, it's so much hard work, it's this and that, right? Like I don't see it quite as that, but you do have to make some hard. I think you have to be a good decision maker. I think you have to decide, not necessarily the exact whys of what you're doing and talking it out completely and thinking it through completely, but you want to have an idea of what you're going for. and then you want to be honest with yourself and kind of keep yourself accountable. You know, like if you say that you're going for the national team, but you know you're off in a city where there's not really a lot of rowing, and you're doing other stuff, then like, well, you're sort of doing other stuff. But I think one of the things that rowing's really taught me is that you can kind of pick your life up a little bit, move to a new city, and make it work that way. That's what a lot of people, at least on the lightweight side of things, that's kind of, if you're out of college and you're now looking to make a senior team or U23 team, you're probably looking at moving. You know, it's probably something you're going to have to do unless you already live in one of the major cities like kind of Philly, Boston, or, you know, maybe you're already up in Connecticut and you're doing stuff up there. So, you know, I've moved around a lot, and a lot of my contemporaries have also kind of done that thing. And that doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't even necessarily mean for a whole year or a couple years, although definitely done that, to Philly, Boston, wherever. It might mean that you are going somewhere and you're going to go to grad school and row. It might mean just for a month you're able to take like some time off work and do like a training trip somewhere. And I think, at least again, speaking to like the lightweight side of things, but I know this is definitely true of heavyweights too, it's kind of it's the passion and the enthusiasm for the sport that really drives it, you know, because it's like you're not making any money, you know, you're spending money, often yours or your parents or your spouses or whoever, and that can be really, really fun and rewarding. Because I think that, like, just to ground it in a concrete example instead of just bullshitting, I mean, I moved out to Philadelphia and showed up in 2012 expecting to row lightweight quad with some of my best friends, with a guy, Shane Madden. I just rowed in the Director's Challenge quad with him. And this would be like my first national team. I was all excited to go. I was told by the stroke seat that we'd have this quad ready to go. And I show up and it's like me in a double with one other guy. Shane's doing his own thing, and like we don't have a fourth guy. I was like, whoa, I just moved my life out here. I like just quit everything, and now we're here, and it's not even... I was like, well, what's the deal with the fourth guy and the other guy? Are they like busy or something? And they're like, oh no, they're right over there. Yeah, they row. Oh hi, yeah, they row too. So it was kind of a convincing, like, we kind of had to bring everybody together. But you know, if I'd been in my comfort zone, if I'd been in Seattle, you know, I would have given that like 25 minutes of my time and been like, all right, this is a waste, guys. What are we doing? But it was too late. You know, we were committed. I was like, I'm in Philly. I was calling home. My mom was like, how's the quad going? I'm like, it's still on the racks, but it's good. You know, we'll make it work. She's like, well, how's the training? Is there a training plan there? I was like, there's no plan. No, we just wing it every day. And, you know, a coach hit us the other day intentionally with his launch, but we won't go into that story, and he shall forever remain unnamed. But I think that you can get a lot out of the experience of saying, like, you know what, I'm gonna sign up for this. I'm gonna do it. It may totally fail, but you're gonna learn a lot just by putting yourself out there and saying, like, yeah, like, this might not go very well. And that summer did go really well. You know, that summer was really charmed. It was my first national team. It was in Plovdiv, Bulgaria, in 2012, and that was also where Worlds were this year. And it was kind of cool to be back there and sort of see some of the same people, but honestly a lot of, you know, younger people, less experienced people. But I would just encourage, I mean, speaking to anybody who's thinking about pursuing this, or, you know, has pursued it and is like on the cusp of being like, I don't know if it's going to work. It's like, it may not work always, but you're going to get this amazing experience out of it either way. I think, like, something that we were talking about a minute ago, like some of my best friends and contemporaries, I feel like they just stopped like slightly too soon. Like, I wish they'd carried on for like another year or another couple years, and, you know, they might too. It's not like they live with regrets or anything, but I just was like, man, if you guys had just hung on as long as I have, you'd be so good right now. You'd be so good. But it's really hard. It's hard to keep making that commitment year after year, right? So,
especially when you don't know exactly, like, you never know if you're going to make it or not, and people are like, I can only do this so long, or I can only, like, take not making the team for so long. So, yeah. But I know it's when you stick it out like that, you never really, you know.
I mean, good things might happen, right? Like one of my favorite things that I just want to mention, because I've seen a couple. It generated a couple best friendships. It wasn't just like we're all buds before, but in 2015, there were a bunch of, you know, rowing bums, lightweight guy rowing bums that weren't going to make the team in any other way. And on the suggestion of one of our mutual friends, Matt Muffelman, who's now over at Hudson, he was like, dude, forget the quad, do the lightweight 8, call everyone, get the ball rolling, just do it. So the first person I called was our coxswain, and I was like, all right, Jack, we're doing this. Jack says, no, dude, I'm not doing it. And I was like, no, we're doing it. Bruce is going to coach it. It's going to be great. And he's like, all right. So tell me the lineup. Who we got? I was like, we got you, me. We got you and me. We're doing it.
Looking good so far.
I called the next guy, and he was like, and Jack was like, okay, no. And I was like, all right. So I called the next guy and said, all right, Alex, we're doing it. He's like, who you got? I was like, Jack's in, I'm in, and you. So it's all three of us now, and we got equipment lined up and everything. He's like, oh yeah, no thanks, I'm not doing it. I'm like, right on. Next I call Chris, we're doing it. There's 4 of us now. Chris says no. And basically, once I got to the end of the list of no's, starting back at the beginning, told him everybody said yes, and gradually everybody did say yes, and we had like
how that works. I put Ace together like that too. It's like you need a core group to build them around. you gotta stay on them and just build around that core group. So I'm so sorry, totally interrupted. Go ahead.
No, and it was a charmed summer, and I think that everybody. Right from like I saw another there was a Harvard kid who he had tried out for the seat racing portion and not advanced, but I mean by his own admission he got a lot out of just that. It was like a fun couple weeks of going up and down the base and bashing each other to bits in Cox fours. Like that in and of itself was worthwhile and fun. Like even for the guys that didn't end up making the actual boat, like I would think it was still a pretty good experience. So.
I think it's like you're also kind of just proving yourself for when that chance is available to be taken. Like you never know. Like the day of the competition, the stroke man might, sick or something or injured. And if you've proven yourself enough through just that hard work, you're the next in line. So it's worth.
And
worth it.
A lot of it's kind of like right place at the right time too. Like if a few stars align and you happen to be the one that's put in the work and you're prepared to step into that position, then fair game. So one thing that I think is really interesting that's happening is the elimination of lightweight. So lightweight rowing is kind of going away. I mean, what does that do, for someone like you who's put in so many years, when something like this comes up, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, it's a bummer. First of all, it's a bummer, and I don't want to get into the whole is it right or wrong or whatever, but here's an experience so when I was in college, one of the coolest things is I rode lightweight in college at Dartmouth, and I had some really cool experiences there. We had, again, some charmed races and some great coaching. My coach was Steve Perry, and he did an amazing job with us in the time I was there. And at the same time, though, it was like, yeah, our boats are going fast, but, the year that I graduated in 2008, same guy that convinced me to do the lightweight 8, Matt, had just stroked the lightweight 8 to a world championship gold medal, right? And so there was kind of this cool thing of like, oh, hey, not only did you have this good experience rowing in college, or even if you didn't have a good experience, there's like another level that you can shoot for, right? And you don't have to go off and be this lone wolf single sculler and just like not talk to anybody and do your own thing. And like you can literally just like kind of take the skill set that you developed in college, refine it, perfect it, get your erg score better, do a bunch of seat racing. Maybe you don't make it the first couple of years, but like you could conceivably like win worlds. Like that could be a thing, and I just felt like, especially in 2015, I was lucky enough to make that boat. We had a bunch of strong guys. We didn't win. We got third. That was pretty good. But it was like they cut the lightweight 8 that very next year. And I just thought like, wow, like that was shitty for us. But it's also a bummer for anybody who had been in college or maybe like was thinking about it and thinking like, wow, I might want to do that someday because okay, now that opportunity is just like not there. So again, not to say whether it's right or wrong or whatever. I understand there are definitely reasons why the sport's changing. Obviously, all these things have to change, right? But that's my perspective on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It is a challenge for those kinds of guys. Even Mark and Shane, who we are going to try to talk to later on the Irish squad. They are having to literally go heavyweight, and it's like what do you do? It's like you don't have another option, or you don't row. really, or you don't race. I mean, you obviously row, but like, you know, it does cut out some racing for you. So it's going to be, I think, really, really interesting to kind of see where it goes and what actually happens with it.
Especially, I mean, the other thing, so it's not just inspirational in the sense of like, you know, a personal basis where you project yourself into some kind of a future scenario. Look at their race last summer. That is like it's like almost a sport changing moment. You know, it's something that nobody's ever done before. It's something really special. It was reminiscent of the sort of special kind of performances that like the Danish lightweights used to have, you know, in the late 90s, 2000s, where they were so dominant that everybody was looking at them and being like, well, that's a team that's taken this sport and just lifted it up to kind of this next level, you know? And I'm worried that if we keep kind of cutting back our sport, like, you know, clipping our own wings here, like, you know, we might miss out on some of these opportunities potentially. Like even this year, I mean, we don't know what would have happened. We only had 3 entries in the lightweight men's pair, which was the event I was in, and we got third of 3. But we got to watch those guys paddling around, and it's just, I mean, it's impressive just to see it with your own eyes, you know. And what's amazing too, I want to point out, like, I do love, one of the things about the sport that's really changed is you can watch these performances on video, like on YouTube. It's amazing. I love that. I wish the younger generation would take more advantage of that. Yeah. I'd realize we don't all have time to sit around watching rowing videos all day, but you know, it's pretty good.
We'd all like to, though. I mean, we'd all like to.
It's the best use of your time.
It is. I mean, speaking of being productive, it's educational, right? It's educational.
Yeah. Well, and if you're a rower and you're watching great rowing, just watching it, you don't have to visualize. Your mirror neurons are firing and you're actually getting better at crew. That's just...
Yeah. No, it's totally true. It's totally true. And I'm really excited to see like what those 2 guys do, you know, what you kind of decide to do, and what, you know, just what happens. It's going to be really interesting to see what these guys that have just been dominant and been in the game for so long, like what happens. You know, are they going to be the game changers and sort of evolve with being cut back, or like where are things going to sort of push back a little bit, or you know, or change with the sport? So I think it'll be really, really interesting. But if you don't mind, I'd like to switch notes here just a little bit and sort of talk about the Charles a little bit. Like, how many times have you been here? What has your experience been like here? You obviously go down this course in a blind boat, which is, I imagine, as a coxswain, since I can see forward, terrifying to me. So I admire anyone who does blind boats in this race. I mean, my hat's off to you. So a lot of people come here, like this one over here has never actually coxed this course. So what would you say this course is kind of like talk us through this course just a little bit, and sort of what you would do if you were telling someone who had never gone down the course, like a few pointers.
Yeah, sure. So I had the slight former home court advantage because I was in grad school here, so I rode here for like 3 years. So you're out there every day, you kind of know it, understand it. I'd say probably the biggest thing is when it's really windy in days like today, to not be surprised by the conditions very quickly changing, and just be able to kind of respond to that, and also just sort of awareness of where you are throughout the course, like awareness of each of your turns, each of your lines, this and that. Don't assume that just because you had a stern point and it hasn't moved that you haven't gotten completely, you know, pushed over to one side or the other. But it's, you know, it's one of the best exercises I did. So the first time I did a blind boat, and I just want to point this out because it was one of my fondest Charles memories, was doing the championship double in, when would that have been, 2009. And I was doing it with Matt Carey, lightweight friend of mine, and I was steering, and I went on, it was one of the first times that I had like Google Earth, and so you could get a really good, like, accurate overview. So just zoom in on Boston, Mass, and you can actually draw one of the little, like, connect the dot points and a line, and you can literally see, at least for me as a very, like, visual person, that was super clarifying because it just demystified what in my head had been like, I don't know, a squiggle? Like a squiggle that takes a long time and is really hard. I also learned a lot when we were doing one of Riverside Boat Clubs, because that's where we were rowing out of. We were doing one of their Head of the Kevin sort of pre-Charles practice pieces, and I saw another just a legend of lightweight rowing was coming up behind us. Steve Tucker, I don't know if you guys remember him, but he's a world's medalist, Olympian, all the stuff from MIT, and he was coming up behind us, and we had been sort of like pushing his double back, and like I was taking weeks like an 8, thinking like, okay, very conventionally, like stay to the middle and then like cut in so that I'm done with the turn, and like stay at full slide the whole time. And we had gotten maybe like 3 or 4 lengths of open water, and Steve Tucker and his partner closed that up to overlap on our boat within like the space of the turn, and I was like, oh my god. And the way they did it was just by going up to like 50 strokes a minute and just bashing the boat around like in a, almost like a hard edge, instead of, because they're, if you're in a small boat, so, and this is where it kind of differs, right? If you're in the 8, if you're in the 4, you have to sort of plan your turn because it has kind of a big radius. In the single, I'd say just, and I don't know if this is good advice, but it's worked for me on a couple occasions, or even in a double, get as tight to the bridge as you can, bash it around at 40 strokes a minute, and then blast out of there. Like, don't waste time with some sort of big sweeping turn. Just bang it around, done, get out of there.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, and that's what a way to learn. Watch someone overtake you.
Just watch the master at work and learn,
Just watch and learn, yeah.
I had this idea about like, okay, I'll be like a race car driver. Nope, not at all. You want to be like a ball bouncing off a wall.
So try to find some YouTube videos of that.
Yeah.
And learn. There you go. Watch some YouTube videos. Okay, so let's finish up by talking about what you're sort of doing when you're not rowing. Like you have a lot of hobbies, you have a lot of other things you're doing. I assume you have a life somewhere that doesn't involve rowing. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then we'll talk about like where we can find you and see some of the stuff you're up to.
Sure. So I think we're talking maybe about artwork. I hope so. So that's something that finally I've been able to kind of bring together with rowing only sort of in the last year. Like the Pocock Foundation, sorry to plug them shamelessly again, but they had me do some artwork this past year for this new boathouse project in Kenmore, which is a city that's just a little north of Seattle, up on Lake Washington there on like the northern tip. So one of the things that they were trying to do is like, they were like, we need to visualize what a boathouse up there might look like. Yeah, we can do like photography and these other things, but I think that people will always respond to hand media, watercolor, drawing, painting, that kind of thing. That's what I do. Besides the coaching and the rowing, that's how, I've been drawing since as long as I can remember, pre-memorial, probably started with some dinosaurs.
And he's really good, by the way. He's really good.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I try to put everything online just on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not in love with those platforms, but it gets the word out there, and I just find that kind of the more work I do with that, the more I get. I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, maybe 3, I don't remember, but the Head of the Charles put out a book, and the course map in that book is my pencil drawing. So thanks to them for that commission. That was great. But yeah, it's
pretty cool. It really is like fun to see. I know you may not like Instagram very much, but it is fun to like see your posts and stuff. They're really good. They're really, really good. And it's amazing that like you live it and you are doing, rowing art and, getting to sort of work in what you love and do at the same time. It's really, really cool.
I'm very lucky.
Well, luck is part of it. You work really hard. That's the thing. I think luck is maybe a few stars align here and there, but you work really hard for it. So that's really one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today, because you've been just plugging away at this stuff for so long, and it's so like you fly under the radar. I think a little bit, like just people know who you are, but at the same time, it's like this guy's been around working his butt off for 10 years doing this, and it's hard work. It's really hard work. So please tell us where we can find you. How can people follow you, see what you're up to, follow this whole lightweight situation, see what goes on, and definitely see your art. So tell us where to find you.
Yeah, definitely. Probably just the Instagram handle is the easiest, fastest way. It's DOS Designs Limited, so DOS Designs Ltd. That's it.
And what is it primarily, sketching and watercolor?
Yeah, so I just kind of throw stuff up on there as I do it, but it's a lot of drawing in either pencil or ink or watercolor. Sometimes it's just a snippet of something larger going on. Sometimes it's a finished work. The biggest drawback is sometimes you're looking at something that's like 30 by 40 inches, and it's like this big.
It's a square. It's one little square.
Or sometimes I do something that's even smaller than the size of the phone, but the phone makes it look really good. So there's also that.
And it looks really good. It looks really. Instagram totally helps. It looks good.
It does.
You're actually good. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us about that you're up to, or that you have coming up, or anything else going on before we sign off?
I think I would just want to say thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to shoot the breeze a little bit here. This is really cool to be here. I think it's a great event. I love coming to the Charles. I think primarily it's a chance to have these kind of encounters and make some new friends and see some old friends.
Definitely. Well, it's such an honor to have you here, and of course, my
pleasure.
Since I've known you, just like seeing your work ethic and like what you're willing to do to sort of be at the top level of your sport is just, it's so admirable, and I hope more people can hear your story and go for it, because it's worth it. And here you are, you're still doing it.
Gosh, thank you.
So, of course. Absolutely. So again, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for coming. We are reporting live here from the Aston Martin tent, 54th head of the Charles Regatta here in Boston, and we will certainly be coming back in here with a few more national teams right after the race at 1:55, the men's champs 8s. Anything else?
No, just thanks again for chatting to us and talking to us. Good to meet you.
Yeah, you too, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Then we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.